So then we missed the background. What a pity. Never mind.
I'm very sorry.
I thought you never mind. That's
I'm
okay.
trying to do too many things on the computer.
Yeah. So, okay. So what are happiness and what are suffering? Well, then we need to look at the Four Noble Truths, Buddha's first teaching. And all this is contained in the first stages of practice, in the first and second scopes, the lowest and the middle scope of the Lam Rim, if we're familiar with that, you know. So there, basically the Four Noble Truths, the four truths for the noble ones, are basically what they're framed in terms of suffering. One, there is suffering, and he describes 3 levels of suffering. One is called the suffering of suffering. The next is called the suffering of change. And the third one is called all-pervasive suffering. These are different terms for these, but this will do for this lot. So these are the 3 levels of suffering. Now, the only one that we recognize as what we understand as suffering is the first one. He calls it even the suffering of suffering. And that's what we understand as suffering, basically when the bad things happen. So let's just stick to that one for now. The second of these 4 is there are causes of suffering. So this is the crucial piece that helps us understand Buddha's view of the universe, you know. And as far as he's concerned, there are, of course, hundreds of causes, everything. I mean, we know scientifically, you just take a flower or one, you know, a computer, look at the hundreds of causes that have to be accumulated and all put into the right order in order to produce a computer. Well, here he's talking about a moment of suffering. There's different kinds of suffering. We're talking the grossest level of the bad things that happen to us. They can, and there's 4, so we'll go into that in a second. So this is, he says there are causes of that, but he pinpoints the 2 main causes, such that if we can organize these 2 and do these 2, then we can stop our future suffering. So the 2 main causes of suffering, as far as Buddha is concerned, one is called karma, meaning the past actions of your body and speech. Often it's said that the word karma means action, I think. And the second cause, which is the main one, and the 2 subsume to this one, it's called the delusions or the neurotic states of mind, our negative states of mind, like attachment and anger and jealousy and low self-esteem and whatever, these unhappy, non-virtuous, unhappy states of mind. So in other words, an action of, you know, with your body of taking something that doesn't belong to you based on greed or attachment, they're the 2 main causes of a certain kind of suffering that would come, simply giving a simple example, an experience of being stolen from. This is one example of a type of result of an action called stealing. Second, another type of result could be the tendency to steal. The major result, if it's a fully ripened result, would be a type of suffering rebirth. So there are 4 ways in which our suffering, and indeed 4 ways in which our happiness come into being in the future, because the Four Noble Truths also refer to happiness. The third of the 4 is that we can be free of suffering and its causes. And 4, the methodology of how to do that. So it's essentially a presentation to how to get rid of suffering and its causes. So that Buddha calls that nirvana. That's what he means by the cessation of suffering and its causes. You've achieved your own personal nirvana. You've achieved your own cessation of suffering and its causes if you follow these 4 steps. You know, it's all laid out what to do, how to do that. And he says that's the potential of every one of us to achieve. So we can do more than that. If we're on the Mahayana path, we add bodhicitta to the mix, and then we add that to it, and then we can become a fully enlightened Buddha, which is also referred to as nirvana, but like the greater nirvana. So Buddha's deal then is that he has found from his own experience that every mind, every sentient being's mind or consciousness just naturally possesses the potential to be free of suffering and its causes. So that's the job of being a Buddhist. That's the long-term result of the job of being a Buddhist, basically. So, okay, there are 4 ways in which our present actions can ripen in the future, positive and negative. This goes without saying, but here we're discussing the suffering ones. So the first way a negative action of ours could ripen in the future is as a type of rebirth. So, for example, that's called the fully ripened result. So let's say an action of killing can ripen as a fully ripened result, which would be a type of suffering rebirth, not a human rebirth. A human rebirth, relatively speaking, is said to be a good rebirth and is the result of non-killing. If you accumulate lots of non-killing karmic seeds in your karmic seed bank vault, especially if you live in the framework of living in vows of not killing, Lama Zopa says it's very powerful to do that. Then the result of that, the fully ripened result of non-killing, is to have at least a human rebirth, which for the Buddha is the bare minimum. Then at least you got your wits about you, hopefully, and can do something useful to get rid of suffering altogether. But if killing ripens as a main result, it will be of a type of rebirth, such as an animal or something like that. The second way killing or non-killing can ripen is the tendency to keep doing it, which is pretty obvious. It's like called habit, isn't it? If you keep playing the piano every day, don't be surprised you become a good musician. If you keep, growing, if you keep lying every day, don't be surprised you become a better liar. But we don't think like that. We think it's everybody else's fault, or I have to lie, or it's not my fault, or I can't help it, or something. We're all very, but rather, whatever. So the third way our actions can ripen is as an experience similar to it. In other words, it happening to you. And the fourth way that our actions can ripen, they call it environmental karma. So if you think about your life, I find these 4 points very clear, very helpful. If you think about your life, what you are in your entire life, what it consists of is you with a body and a mind. So the first kind of karma is the body. You got that from your past actions. Your mind, at the time of your past death, not more than a few weeks before you found your way to your present mother's fallopian tube, your mind was in a previous body, and we can deduce that we must have died a pretty good death, pretty peaceful, because we've got millions of karmic seeds in our bank vaults, because whatever we think and do and say, none of it goes astray. It's all stored in our mind as imprints, as seeds, as tendencies, as well as memories, So one of our karmic seeds of non-killing, which we must have practiced in the context of living in vows of non-killing, as Lama Zopa says, was triggered at the time of our past death, about the time before we stopped breathing. The death process is described in great detail. That seed was triggered, and then that already programmed us to go to our present mother's human womb a few weeks later. So they, very clear for the Buddha, they do not create us. They give us a body, but our mind, with our own tendencies, finds its way to that particular mother and that particular father. This is a radically different view, So the first way in our life is our body. And that body came from? Our past actions. We created the cause due to non-killing for our mind to find its way to a human womb, as opposed to the dog's womb in the backyard, no accident. The second way your karma ripens, and this is our life, is you've got a mind inside this body, a consciousness. And this is the crucial point for the Buddha. This consciousness of ours, this mind of ours, is not physical, is not a function of the brain, does not come from mummy or daddy or God, does not come from nothing. It's its own continuity, it's its own entity, it's its own energy. There's a very different view, So that in our life, we've got the body and we have the mind. Our karma ripens in terms of getting this particular body. Our karma ripened and this karmic seeds were triggered also at the time of our past death, or the tendencies in our mind, our personality traits. This is the biggest shock because we think our mother and father gave us our personality traits. They didn't. Very clear for the Buddha, they did not. They can have similar personality traits. That's why you like them. But my mother, for example, was a classical musician. Well, you could say, you know, and typically they'd say, oh, well, there's Robina. She's good at music because she got the genes from her mum. Well, you know, she did get the genes from her mum. But you could say that my mother was good at music in the past and brought that tendency with her into this life. I must have practiced music in the past. And so I brought that tendency with me. And then out of most convenient, I was born to a mother who, by teaching me music, helped nourish my musical tendencies. But our mind is our own. This, I mean, I find this one, when I first heard the teachings about karma, this is the point that I found most powerful, that I liked so much, the piece that was missing, I felt, in my life. We are the one who produces ourselves. We came into this life programmed with our own tendencies. This is very shockingly different, you know. Nothing to do with your mother and father. How they treat you, of course, that has an impact, but they don't give you anger. They don't give you love. They don't give you the tendency to be good at football or music. We bring those tendencies with us. This is the radical difference in the Buddhist view of the world, you know, and it plays a major role in your practice, because it gradually, as you learn to take this view on board, you become more and more accountable, more and more sense of responsibility, that you know you produced your own mind. It's a pretty intense concept. I think it's wonderful. I love it. So if we look at our life, we are then very social beings, aren't we? We live in relation to others. From the time we're conceived, we've got a mother, then we have fathers and sisters and uncles and aunties and dogs and rats and cockroaches and neighbors and friends and enemies. Our entire life, we live in relation to others. Well, this is the third way our karma ripens, is in how others see and treat us, based upon how we have seen and treated them. It's hardly rocket science as a concept. So the first kind of karma is called the fully ripened result, in our case, a human body. The second one is really your tendencies similar to the cause, your habits, in other words, your mind. The third is your experiences similar to the cause. How people see you and treat you. Simply speaking, it's more than that, but essentially that. So if you think about it, in this entire life, you can think, up until now, there have been people and beings in your life, and they have either harmed you or they have helped you. There's no other option. The third lot are those who do neither to you. Well, they're not in your life then. They're strangers, aren't they? So we can see that we're either treated badly, treated nicely. Some people steal from us. Some people love us. Some people give us things. Some people believe our words. Some people don't believe our words. We can see, look at our lives. Look at our lives. We're totally social beings. This is called experiences similar to the cause. The fourth one appears abstract, but there's explanations for it. And it's called environmental karma, the way the very physical world impacts upon us. So we look at something like COVID as an experience of COVID sickness, you know, which is universal to the world, isn't it? It's worldwide. Then one, we got a human body due to non-killing. Two, if you have non-killing in your mind or killing, you might have a tendency to kill or not kill, depends the person. Three, the experience similar to past killing is you would die young or you'd get sick. Now, no, die young or get killed. Sorry. Now look, in terms of COVID, look at the millions of people who've died young or got killed. They weren't killed by anybody with COVID. You can't blame your mother because you kissed your mum and then you died of COVID. You don't say your mum wasn't put up for murder, was she? But, you know, a person contact with another person was the cause of you dying. So you died young, or indeed if you get murdered, that's a result of, that's an experience similar to the cause of your past killing. Now, the fourth one, environmental result, that's the result of killing, is you get sick. You get sick. Now, that's COVID. The millions of people who suffered. In other words, the physical world, which includes your neighbors and your auntie and your uncle and your sister, just by contact with them, we get sick. It's not just COVID. I mean, so much sickness is passed on from person to person, isn't it? Or you get it from eating the food, or you get it from eating or drinking the water. So the karmic result of, environmental result of past killing is that water's polluted, the earth's polluted, the food is terrible, or you in contact with animals or humans, contact with them literally causes you sickness. I mean, we can look at the world, you know. The whole world is experiencing the environmental result of past killing with COVID, isn't it? So this is one example of one action called killing. So you flip it over and you get the result of non-killing. If you have all four results, and we don't often have all the four together, we've all got a human body, the 7 billion humans, but then second, look at the number, I'd say the majority of humans have a tendency to kill, not to not kill. Most humans kill something. It's considered normal in most cultures for humans to kill something. Most religions say it's okay to kill certain things, certain people, you know, at certain times. You know, now because of the Buddha's rules, the Buddha's law, the Buddha's, not his law, sorry, not his law, the law of karma, killing, he would suggest that non-killing is the way to go, because killing anything, any being, any living being can only ripen a suffering for you. So that's why the very basic in Buddhism is exhorts us not to kill anything. Because you see, he's not the boss. He can't run the show and say, well, it's okay to kill rats. He doesn't own rats. Rats are sentient beings who were a human mother 2 lives ago. They don't want to be killed like anybody else. So the fruit of non-killing, 1, you get a human body. 2, if you've also got the tendency to not kill, that's amazing. But very few people are born with that, isn't it? We can learn it, like we become Buddhist and we decide to live in a vow. It's amazing. 3, the experience similar to the cause of past non-killing is you don't get killed and you don't die young. Well, I'd say the majority of humans don't live to an old age, do they? Think about it. And the 4th result, environmental result of non-killing, is you don't get sick, you're fat and healthy, and whatever you eat and drink nourishes you. So it'd be pretty unusual to have all 4. We can go into that, and why not, you know? So the basic idea in Buddhism is Buddha's laying this out. This is what he's found to be true. And he's basically saying, well, honey child, you know you in the future you don't want to get killed. So what's his recommendation? Well, then don't kill now. You know you don't want to be lied to, so don't lie now. If you don't want to be stolen from, then don't steal now, because you are the boss of your future. You don't want cancer in the future, the doctor will tell you, then don't smoke cigarettes now. The concept is pretty straightforward, but it's just surprising to us to think that we produce ourselves, that's all. It's very surprising to us. So that's the basic principles, you know. So given this presentation of Buddha's views, of course, you can't prove it immediately. You've got to be clairvoyant to do that. So you've got to start with taking it as your working hypothesis. So you choose to decide to use this as your basis for your life of living good ethics, you know. So the point here is we are the beneficiary of this practice. At this first stages, we are the beneficiary. You are the one who benefits from you not killing, not stealing, not lying. You are the beneficiary. But as Lama Zopa says, and of course, the rats and cockroaches will be happy. They'll have a party. You leave them in peace. But the main purpose at this level of practice for Buddha exhorting us not to kill isn't out of compassion for others. It's like compassion for yourself. We'll use that phrase. This is very powerful. So, okay. So first of all, a whole hour and a quarter talking. No, only 45 minutes. Yeah. So talk to me now. Ask me some questions before we go further. You must ask me some questions. We'll probably go over to the next talk. We won't finish karma today, but it doesn't matter. So are there any questions there, Bill, in the little chat box?
We have one here in the Gompa.
Good then. Please ask it.
Hi, Robina.
Hello, darling.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Happy to be here.
So what is Buddha's take on gender? Female, male, what it is? Does he
Exactly.
see it
I
as
know.
kind of non-existent or non-essential in human existence?
Well, no, that's a really interesting point, isn't it? Okay, so taking it from the broad point, taking it from the really, take it from the point of view. Okay, no, from the broad point of view, everything we are, whatever shape we are, what we like, what we don't like, our tendencies, these are all the fruit of actions that we have done. That's it. Very simple. So now we know we make a big fuss about gender, and these days especially we're making up new genders, and I mean everything's possible. We're allowed to. We created it all, you know. So it's not a question of is it, you know, necessary or not necessary. Even just from the point of view of, you know, the old-fashioned one of the two genders, you've got boys have a penis and a girl have a vagina. I mean, this is evident. This is physical stuff. So this is like the evolution of attachment. I mean, the bigger picture point of view in Buddhism, the bigger picture point of view, long-term picture, which again is pretty cosmic for us, sounds like science fiction. If our minds and matter are beginningless, then logically there have been these states of mind called human or animal or whatever you like. They've been around for much longer than this physical planet. So the Buddha would basically say we've had, let's say, human type of rebirth in the past, but it was a much more subtle one with subtle light bodies where there was not much attachment and not much aversion. There would not have been such a thing as kind of like the usual one of you know, attachment, not much attachment, but gradually the tendencies of attachment were in the mind, and like it's like karmic evolution. Karma's like personal evolution. Gradually attachment began to grow, and then it became sexual attachment. So we literally have created bodies of penises and vaginas and eyes and ears and noses and God knows what. We are the creator of this. It's not something to do with a creator. It's not sort of random event. And we've created all the other senses as well. All the eyes, so eyes have certain objects that attachment craves to have contact with. Ear consciousness has objects that attachment craves to have contact with. But we can see the physical one, this one that we call sexual, which is very linked to gender. We've created all this. So then, you know, here we are continuing to create. We're now calling ourselves non-binary, and I don't like my gender, so I change my gender. I have my penis cut off, I grow breasts, or whatever. I'm not being sarcastic, just talk. So we can see it's all from the Buddha, it's all part of samsara. So it's all part of samsara. We've created the mind, we created our attachment, our anger, we've created the objects of our senses, we create the cause karmically to have the 5 sense objects, which basically is the physical world. We are the creators of all of this over this endless types of rebirth, endless kind of eons of lifetimes. So we're the creators of all. Now, the fact is, the bottom line is, if you, I know when I first met the Buddha's teachings, I was a radical lesbian feminist. Before that, I'd been a communist. Before that, I'd been into black politics. I had all these political views, you know. And I was looking for a way to see the world. And I mean, at first, I was a hippie. I joke. And first, I was a Catholic. Then I kind of gave up God. And then I became a hippie. Then I became a radical lefty. Then I became black politics. Then I became a feminist. And I kept looking for ways to see the world. So naturally, I gave up all the boys and got into the girls and whatever. And I was defining myself at that moment as a radical feminist, but I was wanting a spiritual path again. So I bumped into the lamas, and I was this 2-month intensive teachings. And it was a very powerful time for me because I really identified as a female, identified as a lesbian. And here I am with these male teachers and these, you know, whatever. But I knew it was my path. So I do a lot of processing. When I'm with the view of karma, what I got to realize was, and that was why it's so powerful for me, that if we strip away all the packaging, so gender is just packaging. Being a carpenter is packaging. Being a musician is just a way you label yourself, the way you label what you do with your body, you know. Okay, the gender one seems to be more fundamental, isn't it? To do with our very inner being almost. But I mean, everything, whatever we identify with, I'm a musician, I'm a carpenter, I'm a gymnast, I'm a whatever it is. If you strip away all of those, which are just manifestations of certain tendencies, there are causes for all of them. And what are you left with? The Buddhist view is you're left with your mind. So your mind is neither male nor female. It's not good or bad. It's got this fundamental pure nature, which we are trying to cultivate. So, but basically, as you continue to give up attachment and give up anger and give up delusions, and you continue, let's say you get, and eventually you'll stop being reborn as anything. Your mind will be in a pure state of bliss. But if you're on the bodhisattva path, you will then choose to be reborn in a body that's suitable. So if you're born in a world where, you know, you've got your transgender and your non-binary, your male, your female, your cis, this and your that and that, whatever, then you'll choose to be one of those for the sake of sentient beings. It'll be like water off a duck's for you, back for you. You won't care what you are. It won't matter what you are then, because it's no longer something fundamentally necessary for you. You'll do it out of convenience to the benefit of others. But right now it's due to karma, our own past actions, that we have attachment to particular shape and size and form, you know. So then we suffer if we don't like this one, and then we change that one, and so on. So it's all part of attachment. It's all part of samsara. It's not trying to be critical of anybody. So finally, of course, it's not necessary. Of course, it's not. It's just, what? What?
Doesn't Tara technically, I mean, isn't Tara technically like one of the only female Buddhas in Buddhism that has chosen?
No, there are countless thousands of. Now, this is another whole discussion, darling. So wait, so given that the world is made up of boys and girls and all the other labels we've got now, then when you're on the bodhisattva path, this is like I said, the first level of practice, the first stages of practice, which is related to karma. This is known as the kind of the Hinayana teachings, the Theravadan teachings. The goal there is to give up all attachment, give up all anger, give up all jealousy, realize the nature of reality, and stop being reborn altogether. You don't need to be reborn, because you've cut all the causes. But if you're on the bodhisattva path, the Mahayana path, then you want to be reborn. You can choose to be reborn in whatever form is suitable for suffering sentient beings. So you'll get born as a girl, you'll get born as a boy, you'll choose to be born as a non-binary. You do what you like. So now that's also expressed as the Buddhas. In the Mahayana path, there are these different ways that Buddha mind manifests, as all these countless deities, they call them, Tara being one of them. But there are millions of female ones, male ones, peaceful ones, all kinds. It's basically psychology, and they're all different forms of enlightened mind that are ways of helping you develop your qualities. So Tara, for example, is female. That's considered like a particular quality of action and success and confidence. There are so many of male and female, so many, sweetheart. So you, in the Mahayana path, you utilize the things of the world, like male, female, or whatever, for the benefit of others in order to get enlightened. Are we communicating?
Metaphor. The deities are more of metaphors of personal qualities that are
They're
attainable.
not just even metaphors, they're manifestations at a subtle level of different psychological qualities, either those we want to cultivate or even those we want to purify. So, for example, Tara is a manifestation of power and confidence. Vajrayogini is this gorgeous red lady. She's a manifestation of purified attachment. Other ones that are very wrathful are manifestations of purified anger. It's a really marvelous way of working with your mind, you know, using the way the world is.
Thank you.
Are we communicating? Good, sweetheart. Good. Any more questions there, Phil?
I don't see any in the box.
Okay. Anybody?
Oh, wait,
Okay,
Paul's
so,
got one. Hang on,
so
Robina.
okay, so if you have your hand up, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking then. Okay, so,
No,
okay.
he's got his hand up. He's got his
Oh,
hand
yeah.
up.
Okay, please talk to me.
Hey, Robina, I talked to you a couple of weeks ago. It's Paul. I was talking to you about gecko
Yes, good.
feeding the insects. I just wanted to say I kept the gecko, but I'm wondering if there's any kind of thing where when I'm feeding it the insects, I'm trying to take on the bad karma for it because I'm creating the circumstances for the gecko to eat so that it survives. And in doing so, I want to take on the bad karma because it's no longer responsible for eating them. I'm putting them in.
No,
So,
it's a very marvelous attitude to have, isn't it? It's a very brave attitude for you for the sake of the gecko. But
yeah,
it's quite a dilemma because, you know, those little creatures, but it's quite a dilemma because those little creatures that you're killing also want to live, just like the gecko, you know. So it's easy to say, you're taking on the responsibility, but I mean, still, it's a lot of, you know, thank you very much. If I'm the little creature and you've got a lion who wants to eat me for breakfast. And so you say, Robina, I'm going to kill you and I'll take responsibility for the killing. Well, I say, thank you very much, but no, thank you. So it's okay, but it's sort of, you're playing with fire, I'd suggest.
I sing to it. I sing it, Omane Peme Home.
Are you hearing?
Okay.
Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you. I think if I was the worm, I would be ready to go on to a better life.
No, that's really very, that's like utter romantic nonsense, not based in reality at all.
Well,
I think, listen, if we're a bodhisattva, keep the camera on that man, please.
Okay.
Sweetheart, listen to me. At the very first level of practice, which is where Buddha's first starting with all of us, there's no wriggle room. We do our best to live good ethics. Why? For our own benefit. We are the beneficiaries of living in the vows of not killing, not stealing, and avoiding to the best of our ability circumstances in which we are feeling we must kill or steal or lie. Now, if you get to the level of being a bodhisattva, which is a pretty high thing, then you even do have a vow to break an earlier vow if it is truly for the sake of sentient beings. But sweetheart, that would mean for the sake of the sentient being that you are killing. Now, you don't have the clairvoyance to see those sentient beings' minds, so you don't have the ability to do what is beneficial for those sentient beings. We're not discussing the gecko, we're discussing the beings that you're killing. So it's a technical point, it's a logical point. I mean, I hear your words, but you're not qualified if you're not clairvoyant. You cannot say with certainty that those creatures that you kill every day for the gecko, you cannot say with certainty, unless you've got bodhicitta and unless, crucially, you're clairvoyant, that it's genuinely for their benefit. You can't say that. You're not qualified. It's very simple. Are we communicating? I'm just giving you, sweetheart, I'm giving you the teachings and I'm giving you the food for thought, for the teachings. I'm giving you the teachings, the correct teachings of the Buddha on how to think. And it's up to you to decide.
Would that be an argument to not drive a car at that point? Because I may kill a couple.
Sweetheart, you're not hearing me. You're not hearing me. So here you are. What do you, please? What, darling?
When I drive my car, I kill 1 million bugs. So I
No,
try
you're
not.
not hearing me. You're not hearing me. You're not hearing me. You're not hearing me. Listen, listen, sweetheart. Sweetheart, it's like this. What are the names of the creatures you kill for the gecko? What kind of creatures is it?
They're called wax worms.
Worms, and you how many kill every day for the gecko?
So I do say the prayers for them, and then I use
sweetheart, just answer my question. Sweetheart, you want me to give you Buddhist answers? Thank you.
Three 2 times a week, so 6 a week.
6 worms.
Six
very
worms.
Small. Okay, so that's 6 sentient beings. So now I have to again ask you the question. We'll ask you the question. Are you clairvoyant? Can you see these worms' minds? I
cannot, but
okay.
Also,
no, just answer the question. Just answer the question. So this is like math. It's technical. It's not moralistic. Yeah. It's technical. So you're not clairvoyant. So that means you cannot say with certainty that the killing of those worms benefits the worms. You can't say that with certainty, can you?
No.
Okay, good. So the debate when we're going to go into now is what is involved in our mind that determines whether the actions we do are negative or positive. And one of the crucial pieces is the motivation. So the motivation for you to do an action of killing that's kind of not too negative would be the motivation of compassion. When you do that, if you kill the worms with compassion for the worms. But there's no reason you should kill them. I mean, many people kill their cats and dogs because the cats and dogs are suffering. And so we think, well, I must kill my poor doggy because she's suffering. So at least you're killing the dog there with compassion. I'm not saying you should do it because you think it's for the benefit of the cat. But when you kill the worms, you're not thinking of the worms at all. They're just the collateral for you because you've got attachment or compassion for your gecko. So there's different things to think about. And all I'm suggesting is forget the worms and their future lives, but you've got to really consider your own, the karma you're creating. You're playing with fire. That's what I'd like to give you the thinking about. I'm not judging you. I'm not telling you to do anything. But if you're going to want Buddhist teachings, you've got to have the correct teaching. So you have a valid basis for the decisions you make.
Is there
communicating?
math you can do with the Buddhists where you say, like, I avoid driving my car, I have ants in my house that I don't kill, I make sure to take every spider out. So I'm making these calculations that I decide, okay, I've got a pretty good killing karma. I don't kill mosquitoes if they bite me, but this one I'm willing to sacrifice. Can you do things like that in Buddhism? Like, can you make a calculation?
Sweetheart, it's very cynical. It's like you got all these humans lined up. So you're in the Nazi walk in the camp, and you save this lot of humans over here. So you figure, well, that means it's okay to kill this lot over there. It's very cynical and it's very intellectual. It's not experiential at all. It's not taking into consideration the sentient beings. I just like to, you can decide. I'm not going to judge you and I'm not telling you what to do. But if you want to use the Buddha's teachings as your basis for your actions, you have to, it's like math. You can't make up math. There's facts, So you have to just think about it, sweetheart. I mean, you sound wonderful that you don't kill the other creatures. I'm so happy for you.
So you're saying, so.
Darling, I've said enough for you to think about it.
Okay.
I've said enough. But you have to, if you want the Buddha's answers, you can't make up your own answers. You've got to have valid Buddhist views. So read the book, think about it, and try not to follow your attachment and get all excited. Okay? Anybody else have any questions?
Well, I don't have a question. Oh,
yeah, good. Non, talk to me, darling. Talk to me then. Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, you can. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yay. I'm delighted to see you.
Good, darling. I'm happy to see you.
We haven't been in person for.
When did we meet last, darling?
Oh, years.
Oh, I'm happy to see you again.
Years ago. Anyway. Obviously, I have not adjusted successfully to the Zoom environment.
A whole new world, isn't it?
I don't have the emotional restraint necessary.
Never mind. I'm happy to hear you. You talk to me, darling.
So your teachings fascinate me. Always have.
Good, sweetheart.
And as far as whether or not a person should drive and take out a mosquito, it's just so much verbiage and not a excuse me.
Yes, sweetheart. I'm listening.
It's not a misunderstanding. Of course you can drive your car. And of course you're going to take out a mosquito. It's the mental process. As you engage in an activity, whatever that is.
Yes.
And awareness.
Yes.
there's a cost to every action.
Mm. That's true. I think you're really right. It's a very sensitive way to put it. Well done, darling. I hear you, Nanda.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to your teachings, and
Thank you, sweetheart.
hopefully
I'm
I
so happy.
won't be quite so emotional. I'm
Don't you
so
worry.
excited.
I'm so happy, Nanda. So glad to see you, darling. Much
Anyway,
love to you.
Good
Good.
night.
Thank you so much. Thank you, darling. Thank you, Nanda. Okay, then. What else shall we? Well, I'll continue. Maybe we've got until there's more questions there. More questions in there, Bill? Someone behind you, I think, is putting their hand up, Bill.
Yeah, I have Vince here.
Good. Go on then, Vince.
Hi, Robina.
Hello, darling.
You could talk about like ways that you would recommend or work for yourself to make like karma, to deepen your understanding of karma.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned some of them, like if you play music all the time, you'll become a good musician. And those things are kind of self-evident, I guess, but a lot of the effects, which are quite impossible to really kind of prove to yourself across between lifetimes, like we've been talking about. But I'm just wondering if the process is more of like recognizing cause and effect in your own life, and then is it like a logical process to then make the leap to see cause and effect happen across lifetimes?
I understand. I mean, I think, taking the big picture, okay, I think maybe a short term, okay, the key point behind the Buddha's teachings right at the beginning stages of the Lamrim, which is what we're describing here, the very first stages, the teachings we share with the Hinayana path, it's all about good ethics, basically. It's about ethics. It's one way of describing it without going into more detail. It's Buddha's take on how to live a good life. So the point there, so crucial for the Buddha, unlike the Christian one, and I'm not criticizing it, is that he's not telling us to not kill, not steal, and not lie because he says so. He's saying, sweetie pies, dearest people, kind people, can you forget about future life and past life? If you could just look at yourself, look into the experience of your own mind. If you spent your life killing the cockroaches, killing the humans, lying, stealing, harming, don't have to worry about future and past lives first. My feeling is anybody with half a brain, if we really did join the dots, would agree that if you even forget the body, even you just continue to lie or badmouth people behind backs or abuse people, forget even doing physical actions, just verbal, which we pay no attention to in our culture. We think I'm allowed to say what I like. Buddha's key point is, if we really began to become familiar with our mind, we would see that the pain we cause ourselves right now when we steal and lie, when we lie and badmouth and abuse others, would be unbearable. So all this does is forget future lives and past lives, and I'm going to answer that in a minute. But this is, I think, the thing that we lack terribly, because we say, well, I'm allowed to lie. Look what she did to me. I'm allowed to be angry. I'm allowed to be jealous. We have this very deep instinctive dualistic view of being a victim who didn't ask to get born. Therefore, I'm allowed to do these bad things. And in other words, the worst point is we don't realize that what we do in our mind, and not to mention our speech, that this harms us moment by moment. I think even if we're good Buddhists, we don't get this. We just don't get it because we're so disconnected from ourselves. So my sense is, if we can even begin with that level, in other words, you're going to be home all day on your own and no one hears you, and you're shouting at the television, you're abusing the people in the newspaper, you're shouting it in your mind, you've got, you see the people next door shouting, you yell at them, and you think because no one sees you, it doesn't matter. We say, I'm allowed to say what I like. We say it like that. That's schizophrenic. That's like saying, I'm allowed to eat sugar Well, yes, you are allowed to eat sugar, but guess what? Sugar brings consequences. But we actually don't believe that speech, for example, has consequences for oneself. And if no one else hears us, we think we get away with it. So it's quite really, I mean, we are very disconnected from ourselves. Forget the future lives and past lives. I'll discuss that in a minute. Are you hearing my first point?
Yes.
It's making me think.
This is huge. This is, if we can really get in touch with this, then we can have faith in the concept of cause and effect, that we produce the person we become. This is powerful, I think, and it makes us very humble because we start to become familiar with our own mind. So now, as for the bigger picture, there's no shortcut. You know, when very simply, 99% of us, we don't remember even 99% of today. Forget about a past life. It's like almost like a joke to say that. But we don't remember 99% of the day, simply because when we study the Buddhist view of the mind, we live at a very gross level of cognition. We live at the level of conceptuality, which is a very tip of the iceberg level of cognition. Buddha asserts much subtler levels of cognition. So one of the ways to get ourselves around the idea to think about karma and how it can be a possibility that our mind goes back and further is to study the mind. That's all part of your studies. When you study the Buddhist view of what the mind is, it blows your mind. The way Buddha describes what the mind is, not physical, and you can learn about what concentration is. You learn about these subtle levels of mind. You learn that when you've got concentration in the shamatha meditation technique, you get clairvoyance. It's all there in the technology. It's all there in the methodology. And then you start to hear that the mind is a radically different thing from what we thought it was. And then you add this to then the view of karma. It kind of, you gradually can take it on board as your theory, as a hypothesis. Because it's a very complicated worldview. So it's not a question of believing it or not believing it, because we have a deep assumption you can't prove religion. This is one of our biggest stumbling blocks. Buddhism is completely different. You cannot, if you can prove that God is right, that means you are God, and you cannot talk that way. But the Buddha is not talking that way. He says, what he has found to be true, here's my methodology, and he's just like Einstein. I mean, I said this, one guy I remember in New Zealand, a scientist, he said, who revealed the teachings to the Buddha? And this, of course, is the point. We think of religious philosophy as coming from a creator, coming from on high, and therefore must be believed. And I said to this guy, would you ask Einstein who revealed the teachings about E equals mc squared to him? And of course, everybody laughed. Because we know that Einstein is this fellow who used his noggin, he observed the world, he came up with what he saw, he presents it, he codified it, and then he presented his findings. And he says, look, he's not asking us to believe it, he's not asking us to swallow it whole. He's saying, here is my findings. It's over to you to prove it to yourself. And that's what you're doing as a Buddhist. But it's a long-term process. So your starting point with Einstein, you have to open your mind to the possibility that E equals mc squared, and then you start to use it as your hypothesis. And then you gradually learn math, physics, so you get to prove it. This is the approach. This is the approach. So you take it as your working hypothesis. You learn the theories, you learn the principles, and you choose to decide to follow them. It's your decision. Are we communicating?
Yes.
The other point that I find very powerful, if any body of knowledge, and that could be acupuncture, math, or Buddhist philosophy, if it is valid, if it is a valid body of knowledge, not just a bunch of random beliefs, which is how we think of religion, but a valid body of knowledge, then it must first be coherent theoretically. So that's, that's the approach that I take. You understand?
Yeah, it's worthwhile
Yeah.
to further.
What?
He said it's
Worthwhile.
pursue.
Seeing that makes you feel like it's worthwhile to pursue further if you feel like it's a coherent.
Well, it's up to oneself to find that out. But we have a view that you're supposed to swallow it whole and believe it. That's the problem with religion. We think you're supposed to believe it. Or am I supposed to believe in karma? Am I? We say it like that. This is completely absurd for the Buddha. Einstein is not asking you to believe something as bizarre as E equals MC squared, but we don't worry about it. Oh, he's a scientist. We think, oh, he's a valid guy. But we just think Buddha's a wacko who made something up, you know? So it's weird for us. So we have a lot of wrong misconceptions, I'd suggest. I mean, Buddha might be wrong in his view of his analysis of the universe. It's up to us to find out. You with me? That's the approach. That's the approach.
So it's
But
meditation.
the first one, what? Sorry? What?
The meditation techniques we learn and
I
practice.
can't hear you so well, darling. I'm so sorry. You're a bit distant from the mic. I can't hear you so well. What's he saying, Bill?
He said that so meditation techniques that we practice then lead us to develop that confidence, or meditating on
No. That's just one tiny part of it. What gives you confidence in E equals MC squared is studying the entire view of science and physics. What gives you confidence in Buddha's teachings, is my point, is studying the philosophy, studying the views. I mean, like I said, if it's a valid body of knowledge, the views can be theoretically coherent. That's up to you to decide. You don't have to do that. You can choose just to have faith in karma. It's up to you. You can decide that. But it's not enough. It's like, you know, just believing that 1 + 1 is 2 is not enough. You've got to prove it to be true. Meditation is just one aspect that you need to develop, because that helps you get into your subtler level of mind. It helps you access the subtler level of your mind in the long term. Most of us won't get that because we have to go, you know, it's quite advanced. So it's more than, anyway, are we communicating generally speaking?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Fantastic. Okay. Well, what else is? It's time to nearly go. It's nearly time to go. 10 minutes.
So,
Any other
so
questions?
can I ask? Can I ask one more?
Absolutely,
question?
darling. I'm listening. Yes.
So I mean, I'm personally heavily invested in science and experiential
Yes.
learning and, you know, blah, 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 all that.
Yeah, right.
Right. So, but how as a Buddhist
Mhm.
am I best to cope with blatant? I live with people. I know this sounds a little extreme. I do actually live with people who actually do consider, I don't mean to be political, just give me a minute here. They actually do believe that Trump is still currently our president.
I understand.
So, and that he will reign supreme in the
Yes.
next election.
Yeah.
So how, as a Buddhist,
Mm.
am I to travel this world?
I understand, darling. So, okay. So I'm taking the view that your view is not the same as theirs, that you know that Trump is not the
No,
president. Okay.
I know that Trump is.
Okay, so then all you can say is it's sort of a bit like if someone is really convinced that 1 + 1 is 5 and they believe it totally, they prove it to you every day, then all you can do is have compassion. All you can do is realize their wisdom is so lacking and they're living in a fantasy world. You can't convince them. So you just have to have compassion and not get caught up in their nonsense and try to prove them wrong all the time. Just have compassion and don't talk about it, and love them for who they are. That's it. There's no other way. You're going mad otherwise.
How do I love them for who they are?
Well, that's the point. So if you don't love them for who you are, there's part of you that wishes they would see the truth, and you're probably trying to convince them. That part you've got to give up. That's too painful for you. And this is not a moralistic issue. It's painful for you because you're bashing your head against a brick wall. So just
Okay.
take care of yourself. This is like self-compassion. Try to, just, you have to distance your own mind from that. And especially, you have to, otherwise we're not discussing it's not a moralistic issue. It's for your benefit, for your sanity. Protect yourself and just keep distant. I mean, your mind be distant and just give up wishing and hoping they change, because that's what's preventing you from loving them for who they are. You're hoping they'll change. You wish they'd change. You're mad at them for being so stupid. So you got to give that part up. That's the part. That's the radical piece. And it's possible. It's possible to make a firm enough decision, but realize it's for your sake. It's for your sanity. So you can have comfort in your mind, Yeah. What do you think?
I have to think about that.
That's right. Good, Nanda. I think every one of us has to think about that one, because the whole world is full of people who live in la la land. And if we continue and wish they'd be different and hope they'd be different and why not they're different, and we just go mad. We go mad, which doesn't mean we don't keep hoping and trying, but we have to be reasonable. We have to use our common sense, Wow. Very good point, Nanda. Thank you, darling. Sweetheart. What else, Bill?
Thank you, Nanda.
Thank you, Nanda.
Thank you for being so vulnerable. Honestly, it made me feel so not alone in my human experience of crying, feeling that pain, and also frustration when I don't agree with people. I feel those things all the time, and
That's it. This is the one. Yeah.
thank you for sharing
What
that.
else is there, Bill? Anything, any more people, sweethearts? Nothing?
Thank you, Robina, too.
Yeah, thank you.
All
for
right,
sharing.
sweetheart. Oh, happy. Well,
Don't know if I have a question, so, and I've learned not to ask one if I don't have one.
okay, no worries. Who's talking? That was Bill, wasn't
It was me.
it? Okay. Well, I think we can just, why don't we just relax, close our eyes, and just close our eyes, be very natural, and then just get a sense of your mind being very spacious, not just a little kind of narrow thing in your head. Get a feeling of space, of vast and spacious and clear, and just kind of expand your own sense of your mind, your sense of your awareness, just trying to have a sense of it expanding, and just relax in that with no thoughts. Big, clear, spacious, kind, unworried, vast. Just relax in that. No thoughts. So then we just think, we're gonna have the four immeasurable thoughts. Now we'll just finish with these amazing bodhisattva aspirations. We just think how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could abide in equanimity, free of attachment and anger and ignorance. May they abide so. I will make this happen. That's that brave attitude of the bodhisattva. I will make this happen. Please, Buddha, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could be free of suffering and its causes. May they be free. I will make this happen. Please, Buddha, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could have happiness, especially enlightenment, and its causes. May they have them. I will make this happen. Please, Buddha, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were never parted from higher rebirths and liberation's excellent bliss. May they never be parted. I will make this happen. Please, Buddha, bless me to be able to do this. And we just continue according to our capacity, according to our ability, just keep moving one step at a time. On the one hand, with incredible confidence in our own potential, and two, never giving up trying to be useful to others, including leaving them alone, you know. And may the seeds we've planted, everything we've heard today, it's all gone in. So these seeds we've planted, may we nourish these with our effort from this moment forward, for our sake and the sake of sentient beings. And that's it, Bill. We're done. All right. See you all next time, sweethearts. Thank you. Much
Sorry
love.
for being rusty, Robina. I'll fix the prayer sheets and iron out the kinks for next
Good
time.
job. Yeah, and you can educate. If people are Buddhists, they should do their prostrations first. You should
Yeah,
educate people.
I don't know what happened. I just got nervous because I haven't seen you in so long.
Bill. Don't be nervous, darling. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Nonda. Thank you, everybody. Much love, darlings. Thank you. And for the 2 men in the room at the conference, whose names I don't know. Thank you, people. Sweethearts. Bye, darlings. Much love. Bye.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time. All right, they're gone. Yeah, that was great. So great to see all you. This is so cool.
They didn't even set up enough cushions because they didn't.
It's so wonderful to see you all.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna cry.
You guys, are you guys in this building regularly?
Yeah, we're every Monday at 7. Every Monday at 7. Yeah. She's on the East Coast, so we tried to move this up a little earlier, just so.
Where is
it's not
Robina?
up so late. Robina's in Manhattan. Oh,
Greenwich Village.
Really?
Yeah.
the village.
That's her home base?
She's established a home base for the first
Probably.
time in, I don't know, 50 years.
Yeah, really. She should have been.
So she likes to say she sleeps around. Yeah, but I think she's retiring from travel. It's a bummer for us, but we get it this way.
Oh, damn, she's retiring like permanently?
Well, from just the exhaustive travel, 300.
We might get her back, but I think this is good.
It's always good
It's
to
good that we
meet
have
you.
a good group.
Yeah,
So-
this is great. It's like having her, but we don't have
Yeah.
to feed her or house her.
And Fran doesn't have to live on pins and needles for a week.
Yeah, it is easier.
Yeah.
prostrations before breakfast.
You know, friend Don stays at our house
Yeah,
and
I
he
can't
is a
imagine having
very
to be there.
sweet man, but there are burdens there as well. He's a very indoorsy person. I was like, would you like to go for a walk? He's like, no. I'm like, okay. We do a lot of that around here. We go for walks, bike rides.
Well, there's
hikes.
never any question about what Robina wants to do.
You do,
There's
she let you
usually
know.
no question. There's never any.
She doesn't mince words.
And Doesn't she know? Hasn't she know?
Oh my gosh, I was like, yeah, she chilled out.
She is like chill. So she reads